according to Abdullah Rashid Bawa, who's the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, may cause the dollar to drop to about 200 Naira. He said this in an interview with Deutsche Welle's Hausa service on Wednesday. The plan to redesign the 200, 500, and 1,000 denominations of the national currency was announced by Godwin Emefiele, governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, October 26. The move is intended to control money supply and assist security agencies in combating illicit financial flows. Here's a quote from him. And he said, the law says the redesigning of the Naira notes should have been done every 8 years, but we spent 20 without any changes. That resulted in 85% of money in circulation out in banks. When the CBN came up with the redesign, dollar moved to 880, later dropped to about 680. And so you see that with this redesign, the dollar may massively fall. Who knows? Probably to 200. Very, very optimistic there. The Senate, still on the same topic, has decided to approve the Central Bank of Nigeria's legislative efforts, which are already backed by law and the president, of those Naira notes after a contentious discussion on a motion introduced by Senator Uba Sani on the CBN's plan to redesign the 3 Naira notes. The upper chamber adopted the resolution. However, majority of the senators, regardless of party affiliation, backed the redesign, but some of them expressed concerns over the Apex Bank's deadline for the deposit of old notes in commercial banks. Olumide Adesina, who's a financial analyst with Quantum Economics, he joins us now to discuss further. Olumide, thank you so much for joining us. So what do you make of the Senate backing the CBN's redesign?
Well, I think it's commendable to a larger extent, knowing fully well that there's a functional difference between the monetary and fiscal responsibility approach. But one should expect that the concerns the senators brought to light was quite disturbing. The fact that they wanted the deadline to be extended. And if you understand the redesigning policy, the idea was to curb illicit transaction, to give the Apex Bank more monetary ammunition to control funds in circulation. You recall that the Apex Bank some weeks ago highlighted the fact that about 80% were beyond the reach of banks, and that was quite worrisome. So I think it's a commendable approach.
All right. What do you make of the comments from the EFCC chairman? You think we get to 200 Naira a dollar?
I think that is quite unimaginable, knowing fully well that one of the problems facing Africa's largest economic currency is much more on the fiscal and monetary rather than just the amount of funds in circulation. You could recall that oil theft alone has damaged our export earnings largely, and also the fact that the country has abused its monetary tools in terms of supporting the government through ways and means. You know, the CBN has borrowed about $20 billion in equivalent, and that has somehow created the excesses in our circulation. But also, you also need to look at the fact that we also have not been able to produce more resources on the export metric side, and that definitely is not helping. And the fact that the confidence on our local capital market has been on the moderation side, because foreign portfolio investors have not been able to tap into some of the quality companies listed in the Nigerian stock market, and partly because of the stringent FX rules. So I think it's much more on the fact that our economy is endemic, we have low productivity, and the fact that our fiscal policy approach has been poorly managed. You know, education has been on the rail. You could recall that some months ago, the lecturers were on strike. That also weakened the educational sector significantly. And also you look at the fact that when you compare to emerging markets, our production level is quite descending. So I think while I understand the narrative that it will really bring in more security across our financial industry, I think it's really pretty much not the fact that we can see that level. Also, you also need to recall that the US dollar is flying high despite the moderation in different weeks. It has gained across many currencies. And with the fact that the US Fed might increase interest rates to about 5% in 2023, tells you that the odds against the Naira remains very high.
Thanks so much for that. Let's talk about the FIRS. The plans to open up 25 satellite offices across the country. There's the statement from them yesterday saying that it's going to help bring taxpayers into the tax net. You think you can bring taxpayers into the tax net by opening extra offices? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it makes some sense, but I don't really agree with the holistic plan about the objective, because if you recall, if you look at our tax exposure to GDP, it's about 6%. If you look at that with South Africa, that's about 26%. And pretty much it tells you that our income tax revenue is pretty much low. And yes, you complain that our productivity is not as high as many countries, but the question is, are people really paying their taxes? If you look at the amount of private jets that were flying at the presidential campaign, one will recall that for a country that has so much abundance of wealth, you expect tax exposure to be increasing high, but that is not the case. And also, you recall that those that are paying are pretty much under high pressure. You recall last year, MTN alone paid about 13% of FIRS generated revenue. That is pretty very scary. What is the entertainment industry doing? What are the political elite doing? You could see that the UK Prime Minister, because of the importance of tax payment, highlighted to his citizens that he was going to publicize his tax record. The question is that these are things that are not added in our political campaigns. And that is why I feel that this might just be a charade.
Gotcha. Let's get to Egypt quickly. The $500 million contract to establish a second container handling terminal. What do you make of the move from the Egyptians?
I think it's a no-brainer. The third largest economy in Africa is trying to leverage on the trade route. The Suez Canal is one of the most important routes in the world. In fact, 12% of global trade as of 2021 goes through that route, and it's also responsible for about 30% of global traffic. So I think it's a way of leveraging, getting more earnings, and I think it's a really smart move in the long term.
Olumide Adesina, financial analyst, quantum economics. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate your insights on these economic matters.